My fiancé said, "Before I marry you, I want a prenup that protects everything I earn. I don't want to lose a cent." I said, "Sign whatever you want." She thought she won. But months later, during a meeting with her attorney, she saw one condition she had never noticed before, and the look she gave me was nothing short of panic. I'm Marcus, 34, and 6 months ago my fiancé insisted on a prenup that protected all her assets, while completely ignoring that I'd been quietly building something worth far more than she realized. When her lawyer finally explained what she'd actually agreed to, she understood that her attempt to protect herself from me had backfired spectacularly. I'd been with Diane for 2 years, engaged for 4 months. We met at a friend's wedding when I was 32 and she was 30. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, made good money, around $150,000 with bonuses. She was ambitious, driven, always talking about her career trajectory and financial goals. I liked that about her initially. Ambition is attractive. I work in tech, but not in the flashy way people imagine. I'm a software architect. Steady income around $140,000, nothing that turns heads. What Diane didn't know, because I'd never made a big deal about it, was that I'd been building a side business for the past 6 years. A SaaS platform I'd developed nights and weekends, something that had started as a hobby project and gradually turned into something real. By the time Diane and I got engaged, the platform was generating about $400,000 annually in revenue with minimal overhead. I'd been quietly reinvesting profits, building it sustainably, not taking a flashy salary from it. I lived modestly, drove a practical car, didn't broadcast my success. The business was my safety net, my future retirement plan, something I was proud of but didn't need to advertise. Diane knew I had a side project. She'd seen me working on my laptop some evenings, knew I had a small software company. But she'd never asked for details, never seemed interested in the specifics. She was focused on her own career, her own earnings, her own financial independence. 6 months ago, about 2 months after we got engaged, Diane brought up the prenup. We were having dinner at her place, and she'd been unusually quiet all evening. "I need to talk to you about something," she said. "Okay. What's up?" "I've been thinking about our finances, about marriage and what happens if things don't work out." "Okay. I want a prenup. Before we get married, I want legal protection for everything I earn and everything I have. I don't want to lose a cent if we divorce." I set down my fork. "You're planning for divorce before we're even married?" "I'm being realistic. I've worked hard for what I have. I've seen too many friends get divorced and lose half their assets. I'm not doing that. I need you to agree to a prenup that keeps everything separate. What's mine stays mine. What's yours stays yours." "So you don't trust me?" "It's not about trust. It's about protection. It's smart financial planning." "And if I say no?" "Then I can't marry you. This is non-negotiable for me, Marcus. I need this protection." I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. Then I said, "Sign whatever you want. If you need a prenup to feel secure, we'll do a prenup." She looked relieved, almost surprised. "Really? You're okay with it?" "Yeah. If you want everything kept separate, that's fine. Your money is yours, my money is mine. Whatever makes you comfortable." "Thank you. I know some guys get weird about this stuff, but I need to protect myself." "I get it. Have your lawyer draw something up. I'll have mine review it." She smiled, hugged me, seemed genuinely happy that I'd agreed so easily. What she didn't realize was that I was perfectly fine with keeping finances separate. In fact, I preferred it. A week later, Diane's lawyer sent over the prenup draft. It was thorough. 20 pages of legal language, essentially saying that all premarital assets stayed separate, all income earned during marriage stayed separate, no alimony, no claims on each other's retirement accounts or investments. Everything was divided right down the middle. You keep yours, I keep mine. I sent it to my lawyer, Tom, who I'd used for business contracts. He reviewed it and called me. "This is pretty aggressive," he said. "She wants complete financial separation." "Yeah, that's what she asked for." "You're okay with that?" "Completely. Can you add a clause about business assets?" "What kind of clause?" "Any business or investment vehicle owned before the marriage or started during the marriage remains the sole property of the person who created it, including all income and equity from said business." Something like that. "You want to protect your software company?" "Exactly. If she wants financial protection, I want the same. Make sure any business I own can't be touched. That's fair. I'll add it in. Anything else?" "One more thing. Add a clause about financial disclosure. If either party misrepresents their financial situation or hides assets, the prenup becomes void. Full transparency required." "Interesting. Why that clause?" "Because if I'm going to sign something this restrictive, I want to make sure both of us are being honest about our finances." "Seems fair. I'll add it. She'll need to agree to these modifications, though." "She will. She wants this prenup badly enough that she'll agree to anything reasonable." Tom added both clauses and sent the revised version to Diane's lawyer. 2 days later, I got a text from Diane. "My lawyer says your changes are fine. We can sign next week." She'd agreed without even asking me what the changes were. That told me everything I needed to know about how carefully she was reading the document. She was focused on protecting herself and assumed my modifications were equally self-protective, which they were, just more than she realized. We signed the prenup 3 weeks later, both lawyers present, both of us initialing every page, signing at the end. Diane looked satisfied, relieved even. She'd gotten what she wanted, complete financial protection from me. What she didn't realize was that I'd gotten the same thing from her, and I had a lot more to protect than she knew. Update 1. The wedding was 4 months after we signed the prenup. Nice ceremony, good turnout, expensive reception that Diane insisted on and paid for herself. She wanted to show off to her colleagues and family, wanted everything perfect. I didn't mind. It was her money, her choice. We settled into married life, kept finances completely separate like the prenup specified. Joint account for household expenses that we each contributed to equally. Everything else, our individual savings, investments, income, stayed separate. Diane seemed happy with the arrangement. She'd bring home a bonus and immediately transfer it to her personal investment account. Never discussed it with me, never asked about my finances. We were married but financially independent. 3 months into the marriage, my software company got acquired. Not fully acquired, more like a majority stake purchased by a larger tech company. They bought 60% for $8 million. I retained 40% equity and stayed on as a consultant. I didn't tell Diane immediately, not because I was hiding it, but because I was processing it myself. This was 6 years of work suddenly validated, suddenly liquid. I had lawyers and accountants to talk to, tax implications to understand, decisions to make about the remaining equity. 2 weeks after the acquisition, I finally mentioned it to Diane. We were having dinner at home, and she was talking about a big sale she'd closed at work. "That's great," I said. "I had some good news, too. My software company got acquired." She looked up. "Your side project?" "Yeah. A tech company bought majority stake." "Oh, that's cool. How much?" $8 million for 60%. She stopped eating, just stared at me. $8 million? Yeah. I retained 40% equity, so the total valuation was around $13 million. My share of the sale was $8 million. You have $8 million? After taxes, it'll be closer to 5. But yeah, approximately. And you didn't think to mention this? I'm mentioning it now. It just closed 2 weeks ago. I've been dealing with lawyers and accountants. She was processing, face going through multiple emotions. So, you've been secretly running a multi-million-dollar company? Not secretly. I told you about my software business. You never asked for details. Because I thought it was some little side thing. I didn't know you were running something worth millions. It wasn't worth millions when we met. It grew over time. I reinvested the profits, built it up slowly. How long have you known it was worth this much? I didn't know for sure until the acquisition offer came in. These things are hard to evaluate until someone actually offers to buy. She sat back, arms crossed. This changes things. Changes what? Our financial situation. Our prenup was negotiated based on our disclosed incomes. You made it seem like you earned $140,000 a year. I do earn $140,000 a year from my day job. The business income was separate, which, according to our prenup, is entirely my own and protected from any claims. You should have told me. Why? You wanted complete financial separation. You insisted on it. You got exactly what you asked for. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You wanted a prenup that protected everything you earn so you wouldn't lose a cent. I signed it. The same prenup protects everything I earn, including my business. She didn't have a response to that. We finished dinner in tense silence. Update 2. Over the next week, Diane grew increasingly upset about the acquisition. She'd bring it up constantly, how I'd hidden it from her, how the prenup should be renegotiated, how it wasn't fair that I had all this money she couldn't access. I didn't hide anything, I kept explaining. You knew about my business. You chose not to ask questions, and the prenup you insisted on protects my business income. That was literally one of the clauses I added that your lawyer approved. I didn't read every detail. That's not my problem. You wanted a prenup. You got one. Your lawyer reviewed it. You signed it. Everything's legal and fair. We should renegotiate. Why would I do that? The agreement protects both of us equally. You get to keep everything you earn. I get to keep everything I earn. That's what you wanted. But I didn't know. Know what? That I might be successful? That my business might be worth something? You assumed I'd always make less than you, that you'd always be the primary earner. Now you're upset that reality is different. She didn't like hearing that, but it was true. She'd pushed for a prenup based on the assumption that she'd always out-earn me, that she needed protection from me. Never occurred to her that I might need protection from her. A month after I told her about the acquisition, Diane came home and announced she'd scheduled a meeting with her lawyer. I want to review the prenup. I think there might be grounds to modify it. On what basis? Financial disclosure. You didn't properly disclose your business value. I disclosed that I owned a software company. That was in the prenup documentation. The value increased after we signed. That's not misrepresentation. My lawyer thinks we have a case. Your lawyer is billing you hourly for a case you won't win. But go ahead. Schedule the meeting. I'll bring my lawyer. Update 3. The meeting was 2 weeks later. Diane, her lawyer, me, and my lawyer Tom. We sat in her lawyer's conference room, everyone with copies of the prenup in front of them. Diane's lawyer, a woman named Patricia, started. We've asked for this meeting to discuss potential modifications to the prenuptial agreement signed by my client and Mr. Marcus. On what grounds? Tom asked. On the grounds that Mr. Marcus did not properly disclose his financial situation at the time of signing. The prenup was negotiated with the understanding that Mr. Marcus earned approximately $140,000 annually. He failed to disclose that he owned a business worth millions. That's incorrect, Tom said. The prenup specifically lists Marcus's ownership of a software company. It's right there in the asset disclosure section, page 8. He pointed to the relevant section. I watched Patricia read it, watched her expression shift slightly. The disclosure says he owns a software company. It doesn't specify the value. It didn't need to. The value at the time of signing was approximately $2 million based on annual revenue. The business has since grown and been partially acquired, all of which occurred after the prenup was signed, making it irrelevant to the original agreement. Patricia flipped through pages. Diane sat next to her, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, Tom continued, my client added a specific clause about business assets. Clause 14, page 11. Any business or investment vehicle owned before the marriage or started during the marriage remains the sole property of the person who created it, including all income and equity from said business. This clause was added at my client's request and approved by you, Patricia, before signing. Your client agreed to it. Diane leaned over to read the clause. I watched her face change as she realized what it said. I also want to point out Clause 16, Tom said. The financial disclosure clause, also added by my client. It states that if either party misrepresents their financial situation or hides assets, the prenup becomes void. My client did not misrepresent anything. He disclosed his business ownership. The subsequent increase in value is not misrepresentation. However, if we're going to discuss financial disclosure, Tom pulled out a folder. I've done some research into Mrs. Marcus's financial situation. Diane, did you disclose your inheritance from your grandmother? Diane went pale. What inheritance? The $300,000 you received 2 years ago when your grandmother passed, the inheritance that's currently sitting in the investment account under your maiden name. That inheritance should have been disclosed in the prenup as a premarital asset. It wasn't. Patricia looked at Diane. Is this true? Diane didn't answer. If it is true, Tom continued, then according to Clause 16, the clause my client added, the prenup becomes void due to financial misrepresentation, which means all assets become marital property subject to equal division, including my client's $5 million from the acquisition, but also including your client's wife's salary and assets, Patricia said quickly. Correct. However, my client's post-tax acquisition proceeds of approximately $5 million significantly outweigh your client's combined salary and inheritance. In a void prenup scenario, she'd be entitled to half of all marital assets, but my client would be entitled to half of hers. The math doesn't work in her favor. I watched Diane realize what had just happened. She'd come here to challenge the prenup, to get access to my money. Instead, she'd exposed her own hidden asset, which invalidated the prenup she'd insisted on, which would actually benefit me more than her in a divorce. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Patricia spoke. I need to confer with my client privately. Tom and I stepped out, waited in the lobby for 20 minutes. When we were called back in, Diane looked like she'd been crying. My client withdraws her request to modify the prenup, Patricia said stiffly. She acknowledges that the agreement is valid as written. Excellent, Tom said. Just to be clear, my client has no intention of pursuing the financial disclosure issue. As long as the prenup remains in place and unchallenged, he's satisfied with the arrangement. We left the meeting. Diane and I drove home separately. She'd gone to the meeting straight from work. When I got home, she was already there, sitting on the couch. You knew, she said. You knew about my inheritance. I did due diligence before signing a legal contract. Yes, I knew. You could have said something. I could have. But you wanted complete financial separation. Your inheritance was your business. I wasn't going to challenge that. But you kept it as leverage. I kept it as protection. You wanted a prenup that protected you from me. I made sure I was equally protected from you. That's what prenups are for. So what happens now? Now nothing. The prenup stands. Your money is yours, my money is mine, just like you wanted. And if I want a divorce? Then we get divorced. The prenup specifies no alimony, clean split. We each walk away with what we brought in. She sat there processing. You played me. No. I gave you exactly what you asked for. You wanted financial protection. You got it. I just made sure I had the same protection. That's not playing you. That's being smart. Final update. It's been 3 months since that meeting. Diane and I are still married, but things are different. There's a distance between us that wasn't there before. She looks at me differently now, like she's trying to figure out how she misjudged the situation so badly. We still maintain separate finances, still split household expenses equally. But there's an awareness now that the power dynamic isn't what she thought it was. She came into this marriage thinking she was the primary earner, the one who needed protection. Finding out I had significantly more assets than her shifted something fundamental. Last week, she brought up counseling. I think we need to talk to someone about trust. I haven't broken your trust, I said. I've been completely honest about everything. You're the one who hid an inheritance. You let me believe you made less than you did. I never told you I made less. You assumed. You never asked about my business, never showed interest in the details. You were focused on your own income, your own protection. I respected that and did the same for myself. So where do we go from here? That's up to you. The prenup stands. Our finances stay separate. If you want to stay married, we stay married. If you want a divorce, we divorce. But the financial arrangement doesn't change. That's it? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? You insisted on a prenup that protected you from me. I made sure it protected me equally from you. You're upset because it worked both ways. I don't know what to tell you. She went to bed. I stayed up thinking about how we got here. The truth is, I'm not sure we're going to make it. Diane wanted financial protection because she didn't really trust me, didn't really see me as an equal partner. She saw me as a potential liability, someone who might take advantage of her success. When she found out I was more successful than her, instead of being happy for me, she was angry that I'd hidden it from her. That tells me everything about what she values. It's not partnership. It's not mutual support. It's control and protection and keeping score. I'm Marcus, 34, married to someone who insisted on a prenup to protect herself from me, then got upset when the same prenup protected me from her. Learning that when someone demands financial protection before marriage, it's because they don't really see you as a partner. They see you as a risk. And maybe she was right to see it that way. Because the prenup she insisted on made sure that when things fall apart, and I think they will, we both walk away with exactly what we earned. No more, no less. That's what she wanted. That's what she got. Edit 1. People keep asking if I deliberately hid my business value. I didn't. I disclosed that I owned a software company in the prenup paperwork. Diane never asked for details about revenue or valuation. I wasn't obligated to provide information she didn't request. Her lawyer should have asked if business valuation mattered to her. Edit 2. The inheritance disclosure issue. Yes, I knew about it before signing. I did my research. I didn't bring it up because the prenup she wanted kept everything separate anyway. Her inheritance was hers. My business was mine. It only became relevant when she tried to challenge the prenup based on disclosure issues. Edit 3. For those asking if we're getting divorced, I don't know yet. We're in this weird limbo where we're legally married but essentially financial roommates. She's been distant since the meeting with her lawyer. I think she's trying to figure out if staying married to someone with money she can't access is better than being single. That's a pretty depressing basis for a marriage.